There we are. Hello. This is day 2 of our Mental Health Awareness Week, sort of fresh look at mental health. And I've got Eleanor, Claire, Lucy, and Dave. Thank you very much for joining me. And today we thought we'd talk a little bit around labels and the goodness and the badness, and kind of where our thoughts around labels and what how they fit into life, really. So yeah, Dave, I don't know if you want to start us off, please.
Yeah, so I think labels, I really recognized labels through this understanding. But what really helped my labels kind of drop away, should we say, was recognizing and getting a glimpse of my true essence, of who I really am underneath all the thinking. So when we get quiet, when we drop into that place of love and understanding and getting a glimpse of that, the labels of who I thought I was started to drop away and not make sense anymore. So I had a label of being shy and insecure, and on top of that label, I also built a kind of mask around that to protect myself. So I became a bit more, bit louder, a bit more overconfident, should we say? So I compensated for it. But when I slowed down and recognized that was all in my thinking, and it didn't make sense anymore, not only did it begin to drop away, but even if I had them thoughts, they just didn't make any sense anymore. So the meaning dropped out of it. The grip of that thinking dropped out of it. And I became a much more loving person, actually, when all that dropped away. And I now, not work from or come from, but that space within, that who we really are, that's how I present myself to the world now. That's me, not whether I think I'm shy or insecure. And I've been very fortunate to spend time with Beyond Recovery in the prisons, and work with the prisoners as well. And when we start the courses with the guys, they always come in and they've got this, they're in their head with who they think they are, and they're agitated and loud and up and down and and it's who they think they should be in that moment. And it's kind of a guard, isn't it? It's kind of their mask to keep themselves protected. Now, I've sat in a room with all of these guys when we've all got very, very quiet underneath it, all that thinking. And we are all the same. We are, the connection. We are all connected. They're not their sentences. They're not their crimes. They've done that. I get that. But they are so much more than that. We are so much more than our thinking. So to be able to see it in myself, but also be completely blessed to see it in others, has been transformational for me in terms of being able to recognize labels.
That's a massive one, isn't it? Because we've got many of us will have such sort of preconceived ideas, isn't it, about that? Like, people in prison have done bad things, they must be bad people, and we're so conditioned to sort of judge that in others. I suppose it becomes more natural to judge it in ourselves as well. And as you were talking, I was sort of thinking, like, it really struck me with you being shy. I sort of had an insight, like, becoming a parent I found really hard, because I think I had all these like preconceived ideas about myself, and then being a mom kind of blew it out the water. Like I couldn't be sort of organized and fit and healthy and like kind of, well, I mean, I could have been, but it all became much harder, you know, like it's sort of, and I suppose understanding now that I was actually putting that on myself to be a certain way, you just get comfortable in it, don't you? And then like, I suppose it's like when you're labeled as like the funny person as well, it goes the other way as well, not just the negative stuff or the perceived negative stuff, it goes towards the positive, perceived positive, like, oh, she's the happy one, she's the funny one, she's the life and soul of the party. And there's always that pressure from ourselves and from other people to kind of act that way all the time. And I don't think we ever stop to question that. I've never stopped to question it until now. It's cool.
I remember, I was just come to mind, I was standing at a queue at Sainsbury's yesterday and I was watching a child, she must have been, 4, something like that. And she was singing to herself, she was swinging her legs, you know, she didn't have a care in the world because she has no labels on herself. And I thought that's it for me. That's just beautiful. And we don't judge her as adults, do we? Because as kids, you're allowed to be that way. You know, but it was, the freedom was really beautiful. But we've all got that. We can still have that. We just think we're caught up in our thinking. But that's available to all of us. Mm-hmm. So you might catch me swinging my leg down Sainsbury's tomorrow.
and just to follow on from that, to follow on from your label of shyness, Dave, my son is labelled shy by the outside world, and I'm very careful at home not to do that because he has shy moments. He definitely has shy moments, but I don't want him to think of himself as shy because there are moments when he's definitely not shy. And so I would say it's a journey. Some days something happens and he feels shy, and then another day he doesn't have that, you know. And the label shy to me puts him in a box where there's nothing else. There's no fresh thinking in that place. He's just the shy kid. And so I'm very aware of, and I also point out to him when he's not shy. You know, I say to him, look how well you managed that. So yeah.
It limits potential, doesn't it? Like whenever you put a label on it, it's limiting us or somebody, where we have this we are unlimited potential, and yet the labels are just narrowing that.
I always think the phrase sort of overthinking something will create problems, and being a busy parent and somebody working, it's very easy to think we're really busy, we're really stressed. You sort of get onto that roller coaster of life, busy, stressed, and then bringing so much thinking into everything makes your mind like I think of those balls with all the glass, with all the glitter in it, shaking out, thinking and just creating problems with all of that. And you can't think properly when you've got a globe. What are they called?
The snow globes.
Snow globe.
No, that's the word. You know, you can't think when that's being shaken, and it's very easy when you're sort of really busy and you've got this. But it's actually when there's calmness, things can just flow quite easily, rather than creating a problem with your thoughts. And I think particularly when you've got teenagers and small children, there's different stages they'll go through. For example, my son sort of went through a stage with like a little bit of a tic. And again, I remember a teacher saying, oh, don't overthink that. You'll turn that into a really big issue. So again, it's just not overthinking. Things may just come and go and flow. And it's acceptance with that as well, as to who they are. Like Lucy was saying about the shy moments. It's just not overthinking something and thinking things lightly rather than creating a big problem with our thoughts. A waste of a worry.
I think also there's such, power's the wrong word, but the recognition or recognizing that shy thinking is so powerful, because in that moment that you recognize it, you become present to it. And in that moment, you're not as shy as you were that moment before. And there's real power in that. But you don't have to do anything with that. I think just
and I think that I really see that as well. So I don't know if my internet's just gone a bit funny. But again, you are going to get those thoughts and you are going to do the overthinking, but just let it pass on that. Can you hear me? Is my internet playing up?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear you. Can hear you fine.
That's fine. So yeah, so again, you know, you're going to go through stages, and I think sometimes I just get like in a bit of a paddy about something with the children or husband, and I'll just want to be ignored a little bit because I know it's just going to pass. It's like, let me have these sort of dissatisfied thoughts and being really annoyed, but don't take them anywhere, you know. So you can have days feeling like that, and I think particularly at the moment we're all having it, but no, perhaps the next day is going to be better. So it's not overthinking all those dissatisfied thoughts in the shower.
And it's not even as much as a day, is it? It's like moment to moment.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as if you have a shy day and then you have a day when you're not shy. It's like a shy moment and then it passes and then it comes back.
Rather than labeling it, like going back to the label, well, this is, you know, actually just let that pass, like you say, exactly. Just let it flow and don't overthink that thought and turn it into a big problem. Because we have got sort of the power to do that with our mind.
Yeah, and it's not even a case of needing to do it though, isn't it? Because it's sort of like recognizing that we go in and out of them, regardless of whether we try and change it or try and stop it. You know, I think like I've had a lot of experience and sort of with depression, you know, I've had that label. And I think that because I put so much stock in it, because I identified so much with it, I wasn't able to see the moments when it wasn't there, which now I can see are there all the time, you know, because, and I suppose, and even if I couldn't see them, they must have been there, because one of my biggest depressed episodes was after I'd had my babies. And like, there's joy in that. There is so much joy in that. Even if you're not seeing it at the time, you still have those connected moments. And I suppose it's just, and that's quite a stark example, isn't it? Like, you can be grieving someone and sad and depressed, but you can be loving a baby that's just giving you so much joy. But because I think I touched on this yesterday, I was so busy resisting the yucky feelings and the depression. But what's interesting, I think, is that by just knowing that we do go in and out of these experiences, human experiences, we free ourselves up, and we don't get caught up in that thinking, like you said, Eleanor. We free ourselves up to sort of having fresh thought and fresh insight on how to deal with it. And like, okay, well, maybe right now I can recognize that I'm feeling really low and I've got all this thinking, this depressed thinking or angry thinking or shy thinking, but if I don't get caught up in it, something new will come along. You know, it's just the nature of it. And maybe I'll go for a walk, or maybe I'll pick up the phone and phone someone, or maybe I'll listen to a podcast, or maybe I'll decide to go to the doctor actually and get some medication, or have a chat with someone to see if actually maybe there's something that can be done. It's not like there's a right or wrong, but something will come to us that's right or wrong for us. And I think we're so busy, you know, labels have got like an identified prescription. Okay, well, let's identify you as shy. All right, so let's work on strategies to overcome your shyness, or let's work on strategies to overcome your anxiety, or strategies to overcome your depression. And they don't always work for everybody. And then you've got judgment on yourself because this doesn't work for me. Like, I'm doing all this positive thinking, I'm trying to meditate, and it doesn't work. But actually that wasn't what was right for me. That wasn't the answer for me. So I think that's kind of been interesting to see, is that sort of association there as well.
I think as well what you just mentioned there about the human experience is really important, because none of this is about like transcending the human experience. It's like being a human being and experiencing a whole range of feelings and emotions that we have. But when you understand where they're coming from, like, that's what is so helpful, because it's less confusing, it's less frightening, it's less, like we've all been saying, like, you don't get caught up in the content as much, or you do, but then you realize what's going on. And I think that's a really important point, that it's like, it's about being a human being. It's just like knowing what's happening, if that makes sense.
Can you talk a little bit more around that, Claire, about where it's coming from? That was great, but I don't, it'd be nice to explore that a little.
Well, because we in every moment we're experiencing our thinking, and that's it. So like, this understanding points to the system at work, essentially, that we're always experiencing our thinking in the moment, and then there's a connection between our thoughts and our feelings. So we can't have a feeling without having a thought. And it's not like we're always aware of the things that we're thinking about. Like, we have so much sort of conditional thinking that is invisible to us, but it's linked between our thoughts and our feelings. And when you understand and get a glimpse into that connection, and that is our human experiences to feel our thinking, it just, like, I remember when I came across this, it was like, oh, okay, just stuff made sense, I suppose, for me. And that was like the biggest relief to start with. And I don't know if relief is even the right word, but it was just, life just became less confusing. Because if you fall into those moments of anxiety or depression, and for some people they can be extended moments, but if you understand that it's coming from the inside out, even though you maybe can't see it necessarily in the moment, it's just so helpful, because it's less fearful. You're not stuck in something, because you know it's going to pass, because our thinking is always changing.
Thanks.
I always remember on that, just how simple it is, really, this an understanding of it's our mind. I remember on Christmas Eve going to bed, and I had just had all the family coming. I had my sister-in-law coming from Cyprus, and they were staying for like a week and a half. And I went to bed like in this like oh my gosh, everything is me. I'm going to have an awful time. I'm running around after everybody. It's all on me. And I remember just having a moment and thinking, do you know what? This is my choice of my thoughts here. And it's that simple. I can choose to get really het up about this and really in a bad mood. And, and that's how simple it was. And it was like, this is my choice. Or I could just stop overthinking it. This just has a little bit of acceptance and realize it's my thoughts creating these big things, or it's not fair, this, that, it's not that. And I know that's a simple explanation really, but it was as simple as that, just lying in bed, and it came over me. It's like, no, you know what, I'm going to have a really nice Christmas, I'm going to be positive, and knowing that it's down to me, that feeling really,
and knowing it was coming from the inside out. Because if you believe that it was really coming from your family, it could have been, oh no, hang on, intruding children, these are my family.
From your family.
It could have become like, okay, well, we've got to sit down and really work this out and figure it out, and it's you need to change, you need to become different in order to help me feel better. And that's often where we go wrong, I think, as well, is that we think it's if somebody else does something, that'll make me feel better. If the outside world was different, I'd feel better inside. And that's what we were all talking about, isn't it? Is that actually it's us on the inside, because like you've just said, your family was still there, they were still driving you mad. My kids are still here, sometimes they still drive me mad, but it's not what they're doing, it's how I'm reacting to it and thinking to it.
And I know that's easy, but it was that easy at Christmas. I know that's just like not really a big issue for people, but it could have turned into something. But yeah, it's no.
But we say it's that easy, and it it is. But what I'm hearing from you is that that's your awareness of the situation, and your wisdom is coming through and speaking to you and saying, and giving you that guidance, which is always there, which is amazing. It sounds so simple, but it's just amazing, and that's what's there within all of us.
Yeah.
When we hear that, recognize it, hear it, see it, it's there to guide us, and it's really special.
And that simplicity is also like a really key point, because when we're talking about labels, it's always complicated, it's always conceptual, it's always difficult. And then when you drop in, like you were just talking about, into in the moment, it's always simple.
Always. Makes sense in the moment.
Yeah.
Because there's no thinking around it.
And again, it just makes you so more thinking about it in a work situation. You're labelled, or that's the job you do. And in the company we do, a lot of us change roles, and again, there's that fear space. Or she's not. So I've taken on a sales role, for example, which is really out of my comfort zone. But if I was labelled not to be that person, I would have been, but it's just not doing it. It just lets things flow. Things are more simple. You're not creating issues out of what could there be. And again, we've worked on one thought in a business environment, and it's thinking you're labelled that job. But actually, if you've got sort of the energy and passion to do something without all the thinking, you can just be far more productive. And yeah.
I'm thinking something, and I'm not sure where it's going to go in terms of labels, but I had a situation last night with a family member who historically attacks, and I historically get hurt. And I had a situation last night where she did that, and I could see myself going, oh, here we go, I'm going to have to take this and blah, blah, and, and it'll end up with X, Y, and Z, which is what has happened historically. And in the moment, I just thought, what if I don't think in that way? What if I just listen to her? And the strangest thing happens halfway through, her being quite mean, actually, but, that's what she does. I heard her pain. So halfway through, she was going, and I could feel myself doing what I normally do, which is shut down and try and protect myself. And I just thought, what if I don't do that? What if I just listen to her in the moment without that history going on? And suddenly it just opened up this totally different space where I just heard her difficulty and heard her suffering. So I'd sort of, and it didn't change anything, because she was still mean and she still did what she had to do, but it didn't penetrate me in the same way, because I was able to step outside of the pattern of behavior or the pattern of thought in that moment, and just suddenly it just got into a totally different thing where I was like, oh my God, this is really difficult for her. But it did rely on me identifying that I was going into a sort of pattern, or there were thoughts around that situation with her that relied on me looking to the past and what had always happened, and me, the role play between us.
And it did change it because you had a different experience.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not saying, and what I'm trying to say is I don't think it will change the dynamic between us, but it changes my experience of it.
Yeah, and who knows what might come from that as well.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, what I heard there is that, for that moment you dropped into a space of listening, and that you know, getting caught up in your own story and then being quite resentful about that, in that moment, that changed to understanding and compassion.
I think it was listening. I think listen is exactly the right word, because the compassion came afterwards. It was
exactly Wow.
That's been the most profound thing that's come for me from this, and the one thought course we've all been on was learning about listening. And it's not listening in the way that we're all taught, where you're taught to like listen and then reflect, because it's really genuinely, like you said, Lucy, just dropping everything, which dropped, including your labels of how you normally react, of how you perceive them, and just connecting with them. And sort of by doing that, I find time and time again, it just brings you to that level where we're all the same. Like Dave, you were saying in the beginning, being in that room and listening to those men who you might have had a lot of thinking that you could have listened to instead, your own thinking, which would have clouded and sort of prevented that. Like, you know, you just through dropping that and really listening opens up so much connection and love. And Dave, like, I was lucky enough to be in the room with you after you'd been there, and it was profound the experience that you had through that. It really, really touched me, you know, it really moved me. And so Lucy, thanks for bringing that, because listening's been absolutely huge in my life at the moment. And like you say, when my daughter's busy attacking me, you know, not horribly, like obviously, you know, she's a little girl and she gets really angry, and she might have some labels that I could put on her, but when I don't just judge the behavior and judge what I think a good mum should be doing, and I just listen to her and connect with her, things change so quickly. Yeah, that's lovely. So anybody want to sort of summarize, finish up on labels? Any last thoughts on labels?
Well, I guess I was just thinking a little bit about the conversation we had before about people who do sometimes apply, even if there is a label, you know, a medical label that somebody may have been given. Do you know what I mean, Bron? Like, you know, somebody's given a label autism, they may say, oh, well, actually, this doesn't apply to me because I really do have a label.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out there, the connection.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
And I guess I would just say that the same thing applies to anybody who has been given a medical label, that it's the thinking around that can be opened up.
Yeah, and that in a clearer mind, when you don't have so much thinking around what that means and what like a label comes with a list, doesn't it? Of things that are sort of so much that you got to like think about. But when you drop away and actually see the person, or see yourself as your essence and who you are, then things become clearer with what to do for yourself and in that situation, isn't it? Like, it might be, okay, well, I need to get some help, or I need to talk to someone, or but it's not, but you start just like, it's different, isn't it? I don't know if that speaks to what you were saying there.
Which I think it's what Eleanor was saying about the lightness. Maybe.
Yeah, and also thinking, you know, like, we only really think we need to do something when we think something's bad or that it needs to change.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's that acceptance piece, isn't it? It's you know, honoring the dips, you know, and being able to recognize you're in that thinking and look upon it with grace. I think that's huge. If you can be graceful in those dips, I think, well, you'll naturally come out quicker than you would previously.
Yeah. it's reminding me of a conversation I had with Carl about losing a parent, and what you said, Bron, about being labelled with depression and what comes with that. And I said to Carl that I sometimes when I miss my dad, I miss him and it's painful, and it's always painful, but sometimes I enjoy that pain because it reminds me of my connection to my dad. So sometimes, you know, that thing of loss and grief always comes with negative thoughts, but actually sometimes I miss my dad and I grieve for him and I enjoy it.
And it's knowing that actually it will pass as well.
Yeah.
That which is it's really freeing, isn't it, to think, it's all right, but actually it's going to pass.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that one was just noticeable for me because grief is always labelled as such a bad thing.
Such a normal human experience.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to experience it.
Yeah. And it passes through, and it can be a reminder of that person, and you know, it can have all sorts of wonderful things that come with it too.
Yeah.
We've mentioned a few times in this conversation, like who we really are. Have you got a session on that later in the week, Bron? Because I was wondering whether people might
touch on it now, because it's, you know, you can never talk about it too much, and somebody might be listening to this now and interested to hear the answer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, like maybe it's I could imagine somebody being like, well, who are we really? And so maybe just a couple of minutes on that might be helpful. But I would say it goes back to what Dave was talking about with that little 4-year-old girl, the one who was free and not caught up with their personal thinking. Like, you know, it's kind of a hard thing to talk about, but who we really are is that essence before all our personal thinking gets busied up. But yeah, maybe someone else can say it a bit more eloquently than that.
That was eloquent.
Yeah, I just love, and I love the imagery. The best imagery I've sort of come up with is of the ocean, and how deep down it's all calm and still and the same water, but on the surface you've got waves, and they're all looking like they're different and doing different things, and it's almost like that's us, isn't it? We get busy in the surface and busy doing this and being this and identifying as this individual part, where actually deep down we're all this calm, like beautiful space, clear space. I don't know, that helps me. I don't know if it helps anybody else.
I think it's, you know, it's the feeling, isn't it? You know when you're there. You know, there's such a deep feeling of love and gratitude and compassion and kindness when you're not in your head. And you know when people talk from that as well, you can hear that.
I'm sure it will be explored more. We did touch on it yesterday, in yesterday's one, I'm sure, Lucy, and I'm sure it'll come up again. Because what we're pointing to, isn't it, is that underneath it all, we're okay, and that is who we are. No one would ever see a child swinging their legs and think that there's something wrong with them, isn't it? Like, that's just perfect.
And that everyone's the same. I think that's such a key point as well, you know.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Fabulous, guys. Thank you so much for joining me and for doing that. I loved it. I love it.
Thank you, Bron, for bringing us together.
Thanks, Bron.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Hope you've all enjoyed listening as well, and we'll catch up with you soon.